What does this mean? Is this the end of the Windsors as we know it?
No, it's not the end of the Windsors as we know it, but clearly, as far as Prince Andrew, any chance that he might see him being rehabilitated is well out of the question until this whole sordid business gets resolved. And that's the big question, because you're the lawyer.
I am.
I'm not sure if you were one of Prince Andrew's lawyers. I'm going to throw it back at you, Rob. You're one of the lawyers. What would you be saying to him? Because I don't quite understand. This is an American civil lawsuit. But it appears that he has to answer within 21 days to this civil lawsuit. Or then, as far as I can work out, in American terms, he can then go to, in America, can then have an uncontested hearing.
Right. But here's his problem. To answer your question, Rupert, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you've got my lawyer brain, you see. And I tried never really to listen to my clients. It always ruined the stories, you see.
Well, I want you. I'm your client,
right?
And I want you to tell me what is going on.
Well, Rupert, I'd be very good. I'd say, Your Royal Highness, or Andrew, or by the time, it would be the other way round. He'd be calling me Your Royal Highness by the end of our time together. The reality is, you are in deep doo-doo, and the reason he's in doo-doo, Rupert, is because of what's called disclosure in civil proceedings. So as you're probably aware, the American court now has the capacity to apply for a whole wealth of documents. That may include all sorts of things, phone records, goodness knows what else. But that will trigger the nature of the claim. It will trigger not just a request, but potentially a court order, in effect forcing His Royal Highness to produce things which may or may not be embarrassing. We don't know. But it doesn't really matter, because whether or not he's guilty or innocent, of course, we can't make any comments about that. And like you and like all of our listeners, it matters always that we remind ourselves of the rule of law, that people are innocent until proven guilty. It's sort of immaterial, because once you serve that great big wodge of stuff, trust me, within there will be something inevitably that will be embarrassing. The communication itself is embarrassing. The relationship with Epstein was embarrassing. You saw that car crash interview where, as he said, not only does he not sweat, but he was just too much of a good person not to spend time with a convicted paedophile. I mean, I'm raising my eyebrows. I'm confident you are, Rupert.
Well, yes, I am. And this is the problem. Now we're hearing that other witnesses are preparing to come forward to corroborate what Virginia Giuffre has already said, maybe, albeit it seems one or two of them maybe reluctantly. So once there's adding in saying that he denies ever meeting her, this is the situation he's in. Now he's holed up in Balmoral, probably on a hotline. He's not having much of a holiday, trying to sort something out, because the longer it goes on, the more it sort of puts him further and further away from ever being rehabilitated. And he's somehow got to turn this PR, well, everything about it is a disaster. And it's just, sadly, for the royal family, it's just the last thing they need. And it's only going to get worse, because as you quite rightly say, something is going to have to happen. And then the spotlight and the dirty washing could be coming out. We don't know. And that will be deeply embarrassing for Prince Andrew and the knock-on effect for the royal family, because by association, it's their family.
Let's talk about that. I don't know. Most families always have a black sheep, somebody that everybody rolls their eyes and shrugs their shoulders and hope that they don't show up to Christmas. And I always get the sense that that's, Prince Andrew in the family. There's all those rumours about him being the Queen's favourite. But, I love the Queen, as many people do, and if you're worried or nervous about the work she does, just try going round all day and giving your one day of service and thinking about the exhaustion. She does, and I really believe this, represent the best of who we are as a nation. And, she's been through all sorts of turbulence over the years and survived it. Do you really think that whatever Andrew does is going to sort of impact on the people's view of Her Majesty? I don't.
Not so much Her Majesty, but it's the institution,
right.
And he wants to represent it. And that is more the issue. I completely agree with you about the Queen. And this year has not been easy, because not only it's a completely separate, the showbiz sideshow that is Meghan and Harry. That's a different set of circumstances. This is far more serious in what is going on. The other is just showbiz tittle-tattle. And we can agree or disagree with it depending on what Harry and Meghan are getting up to. But at the same time, the royal family have got to work out, how do we just, Andrew's got to stand up and face the music. I think it's probably what they're telling him, because it can't be dragged out. He thought he could go away, and the lawyers from in America saying, well, he expected him to come to us, but he said absolutely nothing. And that's why they're now on the front foot. And he's now scrabbling for air to try and sort this sordid mess out.
Well, it's odd that he didn't cooperate in the first place. It's right that we're now in a place of a conversation of allegations and offences like this, where we always have to be mindful of victims. And, it's Prince Andrew, but also those around him, the coterie of yes men, the people that nod, and all of the apparatchiks and servants that say yes and aren't there as a meaningful sounding board, to have said to him right at the start, bearing in mind how the social conversation has moved it towards people who are victims of sexual violence, come forward and be of assistance. Had he done that, I do have to wonder, Rupert, whether he'd be in this mess in the first place, don't you think?
Yeah, but I think the interview just unfortunately sent it straight back. I think he thought he was trying to get on the front foot. That was his idea of trying to deal with it. Having that interview, the car crash interview with Emily Maitlis, unfortunately just compounded the problem, because everything, it made him a bit of a laughing stock. Now, it may be, I don't know whether he doesn't sweat, but, that's it. Did he go to Pizza Express? I don't know. But, but these are all the things that he has said to try and that the photograph was a Photoshop. He's never met her.
No, Rupert, I'm just going to interrupt, because without going into the details of the evidence, that takes us down a different cul-de-sac, which, is sort of important. But the thing that I'm really interested in is, what does this do with the Windsors as a brand? You think about, the Annus Horribilis, I think that was 1992, wasn't it, with the Queen, and everything horrible that happened. And as I say, she's managed correctly, I think, now we look back on that long life of service, to dodge fundamental criticism and to be held dear to most people, even the most ardent anti-monarchist. Isn't this really going to affect the Windsor brand? It's yet another punch to the jugular.
Yeah, I think the high point of the Windsor brand was the wedding day of Meghan and Harry.
I loved that.
Because in a sense, they were all, that was when we came together and we thought a new era, a royal family embracing change, call it what you will, just looking as if they were going to be normal. But since then, it's unraveled in the Harry-Meghan situation. It's now got Prince Andrew. So suddenly, and now Prince Charles, obviously now the sort of reality that it won't, we don't know, obviously we don't know, but will be king relatively soon, you would imagine. And then at the same time, William's now got to try and rebuild the constitution as well. So it's really difficult to work out. There's a
culture of don't complain, don't explain. Isn't it time that they cut Andrew loose? They make a statement and say, you're on your own, son. Some people might say, you've had your chance. I can't imagine that the Queen will put it in that way. Let's go, you're on your own, son, or words to that effect. Don't you think?
I think she will want to help, and, as families do, if they believe he's absolutely 100% innocent. And that's, you've heard Sarah Ferguson say, I absolutely stand by my ex-husband. And there they
I'm sorry, Rupert. You've just made me laugh. I don't mean to be... I actually quite like Sarah Ferguson. She looks like the type of friend of mine that you'd have a wonderful night out with. But as for somebody that you would not want in court to go and give you a character reference, I can imagine the cross-examination myself. Now, Miss Ferguson, as I look to the jury, weren't you in a hotel once offering to take money in order for access to the etc., etc., and then me staring at the jury and sitting down whilst my client was duly convicted? Is that the type of character witness you'd want? I'm not sure. I like her very much. She seems like a very nice person, but come on.
Yeah, but this is the surprising thing. When you have cases like this, quite often you do get the other half of the person would be completely surprised, has no idea, would trust that person.
Yeah.
But obviously, and now Sarah Ferguson's up in Balmoral. The Queen is there. I am sure this holiday is not the holiday they imagined. And the Queen loves Balmoral. That is a sort of happy place for it. Now she's got, every time she sees Andrew every morning, this, is hanging around. And somehow they've got to resolve it and get on the front foot. But whatever they do, it's going to be difficult.
I think the whole thing has been horribly handled by all. But frankly, I mean, there is a case against him, a deeply serious one. He has to stand up and be a man and answer it. And, it's important to provide a counter-narrative too. When somebody goes through this, there is another story. He did act bravely as a helicopter pilot in the Falklands War. He seems to have been a good father, a good parent to both his kids. That's according to Sarah Ferguson as well. But at the same time, the nature of what he's accused of is deeply, deeply serious and has to be dealt with sober seriousness. And it is pretty disturbing. I'm going to end it on this. I have to tell you, Rupert, you said that sometimes partners are surprised by what happens in legal cases. The number of times I had people in my chambers and they'd come and say, my husband is innocent. I can think of one case, that's how she sounded. And then I played the CCTV of him taking undercover kickbacks from one of the fake sheikhs at the time. She looked at me, she looked at him. She punched him around the face and left my chambers. I have to tell you, people are often surprised by what their partners can do. I have to tell you, they don't have the picture. It's called rose-tinted spectacles, there, Rupert.
Well, yes, and that just may be at times, Prince. And she's, as you say, he's been a very committed and loyal parent to his two daughters, and always wants the best. But unfortunately, his other life has always been clouded with problems, and he of his own doing, and the circle of friends that he has had has caused this problem, and that circle of friends is coming home to roost.
Well, thank you very much, Rupert. I just hope, as many people do, that he stands up and does everything he can to resolve this. As somebody that prosecutes cases of sexual violence, or has in the past, it's incredibly important and deeply disturbing the way he's behaved. At the same time, like all of us, we want it to work out for Her Majesty the Queen, who many of us, even, as I say, the most ardent anti-monarchists, really understands has done a good job over 7 decades.